Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today, as we're going to be talking about something that's very important. We're going to be talking about the Middle East. We're going to be speaking about the BidenHarris administration and what they are doing in the Middle East that is troubling Congress, that is gaining attention around the world and all of the countries of the world. This is a big deal. And you're not being told about it. No one is paying attention, and that's dangerous. Now, before we get started, we do want to mention, though, that if this is the first time that you are seeing our channel, we want to welcome you and thank you for being with us. We do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We speak with you on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, DLive. As much as the internet overlords will allow, we speak with you because we believe in the free speech that you deserve. And we invite you from anywhere in the world to join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to add your voice, to add your phone calls to our live stream and the expression of free speech that you deserve. With that said, let's go to the issue today. Now, I know a lot of people are paying attention to, issues that aren't that big, quite honestly. There's, of course, what's going on with the Supreme Court, that the Supreme Court has rejected Virginia School Board's appeal to reinstate transgender rights, or in other words, to allow individuals who claim to be one sex to go into the bathroom of another sex. It's a very controversial issue, I give you that. And there are many people who are talking about, as we did, on Brian Kilmeade and his reading materials, about what he read in high school, the types of books he read, and whether or not that makes him a racist today. Really, it's unimportant information. The thing that's really big is what's not being discussed at this moment. Now, let's take a look at this. If you look at YouTube right this moment, you'll see that the major news media and YouTube and the internet overlords are promoting things like Jen Psaki talking about the Miami area condo collapse, about the Supreme Court in the transgender bathroom, that they're talking about the World Health Organization and vaccinations. They're speaking about heat waves in the Pacific Northwest, and they're talking about Donald Trump, of course. That's the main focus they have. In fact, we will update this for you right now. It's June 28th at 3 p.m. And the next big thing is they're talking about, and we want to give you this, the search in the condos. We see that the Supreme Court and transgenders. We're seeing the shooting in Times Square. We're hearing about the World Health Organization. Not all of these issues are big issues. These aren't issues that are necessarily going to affect everyone in the United States. The thing that isn't being talked about is something that we've been talking about on this channel for a long time. Now, you may recall, back on January 22nd, we were talking about Joe Biden and the Biden administration moving troops into Syria immediately after gaining power. That was on January 22nd. No one was really speaking about that. In fact, many people denied that we had moved troops into Syria and increased the American exposure in the Middle East, and that tensions were growing. There were very few people in America, and this story died almost immediately after being reported by the New York Times, no less, that John Kerry and his actions to benefit Iran, the enemy of the United States, the global sponsor of terror, that somewhere between 2015 and 2021, John Kerry was sharing secrets with Iran so that they would be more inclined to maintain the Iran nuclear deal and propping up the Obama administration's goals and legacy in history, something that went against the United States and our only ally in the Middle East, Israel. And no one was talking about that, and that story got buried almost immediately on April 27th, right after it came out. No one has been talking about the fact that the Biden administration did nothing for our Middle East ally, Israel, in its conflict in the fourth Israeli-Hamas war that took place because the Biden administration funded Hamas through Palestine, providing them with $85 million that they used to buy 4,000 rockets and destabilize the Middle East. As we well know, Iran is the main backer of Hamas, that they are looking to destroy Israel and the United States. It is the stated preference of Iran and the Ayatollah. And you can go to the Ayatollah's Twitter page because he has never been removed, even though he espouses, and Iran has espoused its desire to remove Israel from the face of the earth, to remove the United States from the face of the earth, regardless of your political beliefs. Whether you're a Democrat, a socialist, a centrist, a Republican, and conservative, it doesn't matter. Iran wants to eliminate you from the face of the earth. John Kerry helped them. The Biden administration supported the very terrorists that Iran has been promoting around the globe. That is a fact. So going back, again, very little coverage was made on this, even as the Biden administration tried to take credit for resolving the Israeli-Hamas war that they had nothing to do with. In Egypt actually stepped up and did what the United States refused to do. And our coverage continued on June 21st when we asked the question, has Biden lost the Middle East already? And we have to ask a very simple question here. What in the world is the Biden-Harris administration's Middle East policy? And we use the Biden-Harris because that is what the White House has told us we should refer to this as. That it's not just Joe Biden, that it's Kamala Harris that are in charge of the Middle East policy, that they are the ones guiding the United States. And we have to ask, what is the Middle East policy of Joe Biden? What's the Middle East policy of Kamala Harris? It was an issue that was never discussed in the 2020 presidential elections. It was avoided. And we, since January, have to ask this question, what's going on with the Middle East? We have seen more troops in Syria. We have seen more action by the United States to be involved in Middle East policy, in wars and conflicts. We have seen the Biden-Harris administration funding global terrorists like Hamas, that they have helped. And throughout this entire process, they have been seeking one thing that we know for sure. They are trying to make sure that the Iran nuclear deal, structured by the Obama administration with Joe Biden as vice president, to return to that deal that allowed Iran to build ballistic missiles and drones that would enable them to attack the United States, attack Israel with impunity. And they funded global terror. It is a fact. In 2016, January 2016, John Kerry, then Secretary of State, made it very clear as he told the international press that the United States, in removing sanctions, funded global terror, that Iran would use the funds to promote global terror. And this is what the Biden administration wants to return to. And he is not getting pushback on this. In fact, as we just showed you, we see that no one is talking about this, that this is something that is being avoided by the mainstream media. And it's something hard to find, even though it's something that's being discussed by all of the major news media in the world. It's something you're not going to see promoted. And let's prove that. This is a Google Trends search. We're going to update this right now live with you at 3:09 p.m. on June 28th. We see Wimbledon, Croatia versus Spain, which is soccer, Megan Fox, an entertainer, questions about Kim Jong-un and his health. We see another entertainer, another entertainer. We see another entertainer. We see another entertainer. We see a movie, another entertainer. Another entertainer, another entertainer, entertainers, soccer, sports. Where is, Of course, Gwen Berry, the U.S. athlete who hates the United States. Where are the issues about what's going on in the world? Now, you may say, well, Mike, this isn't accurate. What is the real-time search? We will show you that. Young and the Restless, a TV show. Soccer. This is for the United States. These are searches in the United States. Soccer. YouTube. That they're launching an advertisement for YouTube. Wimbledon. Where is the international news? It doesn't exist. The news media, Google, the internet overlords are not making this known to the public. They are downplaying what's been going on. So let's actually address what is going on. Well, June 27th, after we had finished our live stream, it was reported by the Department of Defense that the United States military attacked Iranian-backed terrorists. That we went into specifically in Syria and in Iraq, we attacked militant organizations and bombed them with unmanned drones. This is a big deal because many people have found this to be an escalation in a conflict that is ongoing with the United States and Iran, which is a big deal. We are moving closer towards war. And that seems to be the only intention of the Biden-Harris administration. Their answer to Middle East policy seems to be war. Now, many people did not, and I'm not saying that this was not mentioned, but it was glossed over because this is a big deal. Why did the United States attack Iranian-backed militia groups in the Middle East? Why is there an escalation of fighting in the Middle East between the United States and Iran via their proxies? What's happening? Well, let's take a look at what the NBC Nightly News had to say about this on June 27th. This is their reporting, which lasted 1 minute, 25 seconds. They wanted to tell you about the Middle East issues and the Biden administration's actions against a foreign state, Iran, and they summed it up in 1 minute and 25 seconds. Let's see what they had to say.
Breaking news. We're learning the U.S. military carried out airstrikes tonight against Iran-backed militia groups in Iraq and Syria. Let's get right to Monica Alba at the White House. Monica, what do we know?
Late word tonight, the U.S. carried out defensive precision airstrikes against Iran-backed militia groups in the Iraq-Syria border region. The militias are believed to be behind recent drone attacks against U.S. military personnel in Iraq. President Biden ordered the military action according to a Pentagon statement, which says the president has been clear he will act to protect U.S. personnel. And given the ongoing series of attacks by Iran-backed groups targeting U.S. interests in Iraq, the president directed further military action to disrupt and deter such attacks. And returning here to the White House moments ago from a weekend in Camp David, the president ignored our questions on the strikes, indicating he would have more to say tomorrow. The airstrikes were carried out by manned aircraft, Air Force F-15s and F-16s, and a U.S. official tells NBC News they don't expect any additional strikes tonight.
Okay, so what we learned from that is nothing. What we learned is that, according to NBC News, the United States attacked Iranian-backed militias. Why? Because there was an escalation. An escalation of what? What were you told about the United States? Were you told that the United States was actively in conflict with Iran? And we were supposed to hear from the White House, from Joe Biden, about why the United States took this action, an action that was not authorized by Congress. Members of Congress, members of the Democratic Party had no idea that this was happening. There was no conversation. Do you know why we had to do this? Do you know what led to this? And the answer is no, you don't. Because as we showed you with the Google searches, as we showed you what's being presented on YouTube and other social media, it's not being promoted. This is not being talked about. Whether it's the algorithms or whether it's just the Biden administration, Democrats downplaying this, we don't know. But what we can tell you is no one wants to talk about this. And they should, because the United States is approaching a war, a conflict. Let me explain. Let me show you, actually. This is from CNN Politics in talking about the drone strike, which they mentioned on June 28th at 12:13. And what we know about this, what we know is that the United States, that troops, U.S. soldiers, are becoming under attack because of Iran and Iran's backed military groups. And we know that they're using drones that damaged a CIA hangar and to attack military personnel. What we don't know is why. We are told by CNN that for months, U.S. intelligence and military personnel in Iraq have been raising alarms about the rising risk to American forces from these newer, more sophisticated Iran-made drones. Did you hear NBC News mention that to you? Did you see this coverage anywhere else in the United States media? At any point since January 2021, have you heard the U.S. news media talk about military action by Iran and its agents in the Middle East against U.S. troops? Have you heard this? Is anyone talking about this? Because you're not being told about this. This is not a primary thought. Even though the news is right there, this is CNN, they're not promoting this. They're not engaging in this conversation. They're not asking the press secretary, they're not asking the White House about this or to follow up on this, except when an incident happens and then it gets buried, just like we saw happen with John Kerry. The issue comes up and it's immediately removed so that you don't think about it. And if you look through this article from CNN Politics, what you will not see is what led to this attack by the United States against Iran, other than there were some drone strikes by Iranian drones, and we don't know why. And they do mention that there are rocket attacks that are happening against U.S. troops in the Middle East, but we're not told when they happened, how many have happened, or if anyone has been injured. What the CNN does want to focus on is that the United States is having trouble reinstating the Iran nuclear deal because Iran doesn't care. Because Iran has taken a hardline stance that wants to destroy the United States, and they don't care about the Iran nuclear deal. They don't care about Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. In fact, Iran has said definitively that through their new president, Ibrahim Raisi, that he will not meet with Joe Biden, even if they come to return to the Iran nuclear deal from 2015. That they have no interest in speaking to the United States, which should tell you that they have an agenda, that they are not looking to make more peace. They are looking to increase global terror and attack the United States and attack Israel. That's why they don't want to speak to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or the United States, because they don't care. What Iran has said consistently is they want to have the sanctions that were placed on Iran by the Trump administration. They want them removed to release the funds that they need to increase global terror. That's what Iran is looking for. And the Iran nuclear deal is just a means to be able to get the funding that they want to increase that global terror, to strike fear and attack civilians for daring to not believe in the same religious beliefs as Tehran and the Ayatollah and the Iranian government. And this is a big problem. Now, the CNN article does go into that, telling us that these drones are unlike rockets, which must be launched from a nearby target. The drones fly further and they can be launched from anywhere. And the United States cannot track them, which means that U.S. forces are more and more at risk. Now, the United States says we don't have definitive evidence to say that Iran is saying do this or don't do this. But there is a growing belief that some of the attacks are being carried out by rogue elements of Iran or Iran's backed militia without Iran's direct permission. But we know for a fact that the weapon systems are definitely coming from Iran. There is zero doubt. This is coming from CNN and their sources in the U.S. Defense Department. This should trouble people. Now, one of the key things here is CNN equally, just like NBC, hasn't answered a very important question. Why is this happening? What caused this escalation? You still don't know. You were never told this. You know where you have to go to find out about this? Do you know how important this issue is? Bangkok. The Bangkok Post is where you would have to go to find out more about the U.S. strikes that kill Iran-backed fighters on Iraq-Syria border, which actually was in Syria and in Iraq. That's where you have to go. You have to go to Bangkok to find out the answer about this, because in this article on the Bangkok Post is where we find out that U.S. interests in Iraq, where 2,500 American troops are deployed as part of the international coalition to fight jihadist Islamic State groups, or ISIS, have been targeted more than 40 times this year. Did you know you have to go to the Bangkok Post, not NBC, not CNN, not MSNBC? You have to go all the way to Bangkok to find out that American troops and American personnel have been attacked 40 times since the Biden administration, the BidenHarris administration, has taken over. 40 times. The vast majority, the Bangkok Post goes on to say, the vast majority have been bombs against logistic convoys, while 14 were rocket attacks, including some claimed by pro-Iranian factions hoping to pressure Washington into withdrawing its troops. And there is a revenge that is going on here. Specifically, the U.S. strikes targeted operational and weapons storage facilities at two locations close to the border. Where is it? The U.S. overnight strikes resulted in martyrdom of a group of heroic fighters. We will remain the shield defending our beloved nation, and we are fully ready to respond and take revenge. That is from Hashed, a paramilitary Iranian proxy group in the Middle East, in Iraq and in Syria. This is what the United States is facing. There is an escalation that these Iranian organizations, these proxy Iranian organizations, are looking to attack the United States, and they are getting more violent, and they are getting funding, they are getting equipment from Iran, the very same people that John Kerry gave secrets to, the very same people that the Biden administration is bending over backwards to provide funding to by releasing sanctions so that they can claim a historic moment in reviving the 2015 Iranian deal that was never in the best interest of the United States, that Iran doesn't care about, because they won't even speak to the United States, even if the deal goes through. This should concern you, and it is concerning people in the media. Looking at Laura Seligman, we see that she's mentioning, and bear with me one second because life does continue to happen here. We see Laura Seligman, who covers the Pentagon for Politico, is stating that the weekend's airstrikes against Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and Syria have rankling the Democrats frustrated by his decision to sidestep Congress, a dynamic that promises to fuel the party's long-running push to rein in presidential war powers. When was the last time you heard anyone talking about the Biden-Harris administration overreaching their power? You haven't heard about that. And what we see is, this is the article from Politico, and Representative Sarah Jacobs, a Democrat from California, is saying Protecting American troops is a priority, but clearly continuing airstrikes is not deterring Iran-backed militias from attacking our troops in Iraq. I look forward to hearing a realistic plan from the Biden administration to de-escalate, as we discussed back in February, because we can't keep launching strikes over and over and expecting a different result. This is one of several Democrats who are addressing the fact that the Biden administration, the BidenHarris administration, is abusing its powers under Article 2, that they are de facto taking the United States into a war against Iran and its proxies in the Middle East. That this is an escalating issue and it troubles the Democrats who have no idea what is going on. It was Representative Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat from Virginia, who said he was concerned that the conflict would escalate without congressional discussion, but added that Biden's actions were a classic self-defense. But the powers are continuing to grow. The action is getting worse. So we have to ask a question. What is happening here? What is the Middle East policy of the Biden administration? The major news media has never asked that. No one has ever asked either Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, what is their Middle East policy? No one understands why the Iran nuclear deal is so important, even as Iran tells us it's not important, other than giving them the ability to fund global terror. And the Biden administration seems hell-bent on giving them that power, even as it makes overtures to help the Iranian-backed organizations like Hamas to attack Israel, our only ally in the Middle East. Something is wrong, and no one is talking about this. The news media, as I showed you, we're seeing Google and the internet overlords are not telling you this. They are not putting this in front of you, even as the rest of the world is paying attention, realizing how dangerous the situation is becoming. Now, maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you think the Bangkok Post is wrong. Maybe you think that the world leaders are wrong when they say that this is a major issue and they need resolution. Maybe you think the Democratic Party is incorrect in their concerns over the abuse of power being held and wielded and enacted by the Biden-Harris administration. If you think so, we would like to hear your reasons why. We want to hear what your thoughts are. Do you know what the Biden-Harris administration's Middle East policy is? Do you see where the benefit is to the United States to continue an escalating war with the proxies of Iran? Do you think it's in the best interest of the United States to fund global terror by easing sanctions and returning to the Iran nuclear deal? Is this the best interest of the United States? We're asking you because no one else will. We're asking these questions of the Biden administration who won't tell the public. And we're asking the major news media to do their job and to ask these questions before we don't have a choice and the United States is in another war. We look forward to hearing what you have to say about all of this, and we look forward to seeing you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from anywhere in the world. Thank you, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon.